Hello, welcome to UMD Media's new show, Signal Roundup. Today, I'm with Mehret Ab. For those of you who have seen H panel before, Mehret Ab Zarabrok has been with us at least a couple of times. Welcome, Mehret Ab, and we'll have the Signal Roundup today with Mehret Ab Zarabrok.
Thank you, Professor Getachew, for having me on Signal Roundup again. Thank you.
Great. So the whole goal of Signal Roundup is to get the materials that are normally not accessible to the international community, that are vital for the daily life, peace, war, conflict resolution in the Horn of Africa, specifically what is happening in Tigray right now. So what do you have today to share with our audience, Merata?
Yeah, thank you again. I have some few pointers that I have gathered from different news outlets, social media activities. The first thing I have is the reaction on the kindergarten bombing in Maqala that happened yesterday, day before yesterday. A lot of news. The first reaction was very slow. Not a lot of people or news outlets covered it. But as time went by, now 24 hours, we have seen a lot of news agencies picking up the news and reporting on it, and also concerned organizations and diplomats are also reporting on it. The significant one I saw from organizations is UNICEF, which has stressed on the victims of this war have been children and women, and they continue to be children and women, and he condemned it in the strongest words possible. That was very significant for me. Other news outlets also have consistently been, I was just checking even recently, I have seen The Guardian, Reuters, a lot of them are reporting on the news. The other reaction on this I saw is the reaction from the Tigrayan community at large. The Tigrayan community were pissed the way the international community and diplomats picked up on the fuel story a few days ago. They spotted the imbalance of the reaction compared to what happened to the kindergarten bombing, and they were calling out a lot of the organizations, the United Nations included, on how they react to different occasions, and how very slow and very reluctant the reaction was. For example, one of the international community part that reacted to the fuel story was the EU. Mr. Janis Lenarchik, he picked up from WFP chief the news, and he condemned about the fuel. He rightly so did also on the kindergarten bombing. When you see the U.S. the state of Secretary of African Affairs, they had used very strong words in condemning the fuel, but when it comes to the bombing of the kindergarten, their statement pissed off a lot of the Tigrayan community, because in the statement they did not include who did it, who is the perpetrator. They never wanted to call the Ethiopian government. They never mentioned the targets, because this is not a military target. If you don't mention the target, you are just covering up what really happened. And the targets were kids, it was a kindergarten. It was not mentioned properly, and the victims on the target also were not mentioned in the statement. They were civilians because the bomb dropped in a kindergarten and a residential area, and definitely the victims will be civilians, but the statement didn't show, unlike how they called out on the fuel story. The other one who reacted on this is UK African Minister Vicky Ford. To the surprise of all of us, her reaction came very late after even the Tigray government gave explanation onto what happened to the fuel story, but nonetheless she went ahead and reacted to the first story, which everybody latched on to without having heard from the Tigray government. But she had the opportunity to include the other side of the story, but she never wanted to consider it. And later she tweeted about the bombing, but a lot of people had called her out. They have pushed her to speak on it, and it looks like her reaction was just let me get over with this. And the statement was very weak, somewhere comparing it to what she also said about Ukraine children facility bombing, where she used very strong words, but when it comes to the Tigray kindergarten bombing, she used very light words and the normal concern language. The other, do you want me to continue, Professor?
Yeah, maybe I can. Thank you, Meratab. I can share and you'll continue. So, right now, just an hour ago, the Central Command of Tigray has issued a statement. It's mainly related to both in Amharic and in Tigrinya, and it's related to what happened the last couple of days, and what is not reported in the news, and even for me, um, we didn't see coverage a lot, is about the what happened before Magala. So they are talking about on Thursday there was an airstrike in the district of Raya Azabo, uh, before the Friday airstrike in Magala. You were mentioning about the kindergarten airstrike where children died as well. So the Central Command addressing the people of Tigray, the TDF, and addressing the people of Ethiopia, as well as at the end addressing the international community. So they are mentioning in terms of the Tigray genocide and the peace talk, and the resumption of war uh, that started on the southern front or the southern Tigray. So this is a new statement read on Tigray television, and this is the official website page, Facebook page of Tigray Communication Affairs Bureau, posted 1 hour ago. Uh, Current affairs statement from the Central Command of Tigray. I just wanted to share that. And on the account of the airstrike, what we are hearing is uh, Dr. Fasika, who was the head of Health Bureau of Tigray. He was also sharing this morning, local time, how he was scared to send his kids to school and so on because of what happened yesterday in Magala. And he also mentioned, I will share if I can find his tweet. Uh, in his professional career, he said this is the first time he saw um, human intestine hanging on a tree. That is around the. He says, for the first time in my life, I saw a human being's intestine hanging on a tree near the site of the airstrike in Magala. This is Dr. Fasika Amdeselase, who was the head of Health Bureau of Tigray during the interim government under Abiy Ahmed, and he is a professor of surgery, GI, and he is a medical educator. He was also previously dean of medical school in Maqala University, Tigray. So these are the green pictures that we are hearing from Maqala on the aftermath of the airstrike, the airstrike that happened yesterday, August the 26th. Back to you, Mehratab.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah, it's very important to have those updates in this complete communication blackout. We are blessed to have information coming from Dr. Fasika. I'll move on to the next update. The next update is we are seeing a very dangerous rhetoric developing against Tigrayans living in Amhara region, specifically in Kobo now. A lot of people are saying that calling action against Tigrayans who are living in Kobo, accusing of different things, including working with TPLF. We have seen this especially in Dase. After TDF controlled Dase, a lot of activists from the Amhara region accused of residents of Dase working with TDF and attacking them from within. And after TDF left the Dese, a lot of civilians were rounded up, put in a concentration camp, and they are calling for the same action right now too. They are calling every Tigray in Amhara region should be put in a concentration camp, and these calls are very dangerous, and they put lives of civilians in danger, and they make this war a total war on Tigrayans, and this is really a very concerning development that I have seen, Professor.
This is important to mention that these refugees or internally displaced people, they were forced out of their residences, and for the past months they were in the Amhara regional state around Kobo, Hike, and there is a lot of risk for them, like Merata was mentioning. Activists are posting pictures and calling for their mass arrest. And this is on the backdrop of what we are hearing from Addis as well. There is a mass arrest of Tigrayans again, continuing in the capital. And these are people who were sheltered in the Amhara regional state in Kobo and Hike, and Hailuka Beda of Salsa Wayana alerting the humanitarian and international organizations. And so this is important to share and for the international community to know on the safety of these civilians. And on the issue of political parties in Tigray, we saw a press release from Salsa Wayane as well, one of the opposition parties in Tigray. We have seen as well another statement from TIP, the Tigray Independence Party, and there is looks like a consensus build-up that once again the existential question of Tigrayans is under threat because of this new resumption of war, and all opposition parties are issuing statements alerting the international community, calling upon to act before this gets to a point of no return. Back to you, Maratab.
Thank you, Professor. Moving on to the next update I have is an interview Ato Getachew gave to BBC Tigrinya. He touched on a lot of things, including on who started the war, the role of the international community, especially the African Union and Mr. Obasanjo, where he said Mr. Obasanjo did nothing for the last 7 years, and he expressed the frustration of the Tigrayan government due to lack of no roadmap at all, and falling for the rhetoric of the Abiy government. And he also updated on what he wants to hear from the other side, including Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Uh, the journalist asked him basically, what would you say to Prime Minister Abiy if you were to have a chance to talk to him? And his response was, war is not going to get you out of whatever we are in now. So he's sending a message of war is not a solution. Towards the end, the question that is frequently asked by many people on the future of Tigray. He stressed on the need for the Tigray people to have their destinies be decided by their own, but that doesn't mean we have no desire to live with Ethiopians or any people. He also said that respects our rights of self determination. That really drew a lot of comments from different directions, but we know this has been the stand of the Tigray government for a while now. Back to you, Professor.
I think it's very important to mention that. So when you look at the overall political landscape in Tigray, opposition parties, uh, all now without any exception, are advocating for an independent Tigray, citing what happened during the past 21 months. And what is also interesting is not only political parties, but a new development. We did a show yesterday. There is a mass movement, social movement, if you will, called Solidarity of Tigrayans for Independence and Liberty. And this is a non-partisan organization that is mainly having members from the youth, but also from older generation, from seniors, and they are clearly outlining that they work for an independent Tigray, democratic Tigray. That's why they say they have added liberty as well as part of their name. Still, solidarity of Tigrayans for independence and liberty. Uh, but when asked about this question of independence by the ruling party, by the government of Tigray, they always refer to the question of referendum. So they are saying, understandably, uh, referendum is what would be they would be committing to, and some are questioning whether that would mean uh, under what circumstances, what would force Ethiopia or Addis Ababa to accept that condition, and so on. So this is something that would definitely be continue to be the subject of discussion within the political landscape, but also within the social and other spheres in Tigray. The other point I want to share is a key person in the Abiy Ahmed government, though there is no known formal position under Getachew, who has repeatedly claimed that in public media that he is the author of a roadmap for Abiy Ahmed back in 2018, 2019. He was on media the past week before the resumption of the war, and he uh, shared a number of information that other medias were saying before for the past years, but this is the first admission in terms of the role of Eritrea by providing 300,000 US dollar per year to the ESAT, to media that has been active specifically in terms of genocidal rhetoric before Abiy Ahmed came to power in 2018. So Andargacho Tsege is also known that treat them with utmost cruelty, no show of any sign or any sense of empathy and sympathy. That's what he was saying during the first round of the war in 2020, 2021. And among other things, he also mentioned about what could be criminal activities in terms of the US law by sending money from Ethiopia to the US to fund this media activity in ISAT. So he mentioned how he collected money from Ethiopian uh, companies, Ethiopian business people, and changing it or converting it into US dollar in black market. He mentioned a couple of times that they use black market to convert money to finance ISAT in the US. Based on the US law, you cannot use foreign money to finance political activities in the US. So this is Andargacho Tsege sharing all this on media in public this week. Back to you, Reda.
Thank you, Professor. Just to add a little bit on the Ato Getachow's interview, especially on the reaction part, um, uh, I think we can always have the discussion on what the future Tigray is going to be. But what I have noticed on the reaction also significantly is that stating clearly what we want right now will also help. There are arguments, especially coming from the opposition side. It will help advance our cause, especially shorten the suffering and misery of Tigrayans. Moving to the next topic, I have seen some positive news, both from Maqala and some areas in Amhara region, encouraging to say the least. The religious organizations in Tigray are calling for peace to prevail, and of course they are stressing on the people of Tigray, their rights be respected, have access to all the necessary services and including aid. But they put out a statement today also condemning the aerial bombardment of the kindergarten. Um, in a celebration, a religious traditional Buhe celebration in Alamata, I saw a small clip. Some youths were being asked how they see the current developments, Alamata being very close to the front lines. They were calling for peace also, and strongly so. And I see that very encouraging, especially as opposed to how some activists are calling for Tigrayans to be put in concentration camps. Seeing such push to peace is very important from the residents and civilian communities. I hope we have a larger voice coming from that side, because last year they were also talking about their experiences. Last year they couldn't celebrate this holiday due to the war, and Alamata was occupied by TDF at that time. Uh, uh, so it's kind of, we have learned our lesson and enough is enough. So I am encouraged by that message, but it should spread throughout for peace to prevail. It's important the residents and the civilians push their leaders to choose the path of peace. Back to you, Professor.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Meratab. So the unlike what we saw in 2020, 2021, there is a big, I would say, promising, like you mentioned, change in terms of what we saw in the public arena. For activists are, as usual, calling for arrest, mass arrest, and massacres of Tigrayans, whereas the public in the Amhara regional state, which I must say have been at the receiving end of this war and everything that is related to it, is resisting now, not to be cannon fodder as before. But the question remains, to what extent can that continue, given the government was in Bahar Dar, Addis Ababa, not to say the least, as well in Asmara. They are hell bent in terms of massacring Tigrayans, even at the expense of, or using the poor in the regions bordering Tigray as cannon fodder. So that is an encouraging development, and hopefully there will be a strengthening of that kind of voices, and they get the coverage they need. And the international community as well has some ears to this kind of voices of saying no, no war, not anymore, and not again, and so on. One thing that mentioning about Salsa Wayana, one of the opposition parties, they have now, I must say, cultivated a tradition or a routine of issuing weekly. Every Friday they issue a statement on current affairs, and this is from today. Actually, usually they issue it on Fridays, and today is Saturday, and they are again highlighting the genocidal war and its impact on the socio-economic, the security, the political, all that, and what should be done in terms of within Tigray and outside Tigray and so on. So this is an opposition party that took part in the election of 2020 and is still very active, both in Tigray and outside Tigray, as well as in the diaspora. Back to you, Haratab.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's good you mentioned the Salsa Wayana statements coming out weekly. Also, very actively engaging, unlike the others. I think they have a little bit of better access because their foreign affairs guy is outside of Tigray. Kind of, he has communication way of communicating to the world, and especially putting out these statements have been very eye-opening and encouraging, coming from the opposition party, especially Salsa Wayane. I will make this my final comment, which is a narrative that is coming out of the Ethiopian government in terms of the war. I have seen the statements that are sent by the defense minister, Dr. Abraham Belay, and others spreading the same news, the same vibe, trying to make TPLF responsible for starting the war, kind of. So they are going with the narrative that we did not start the war. The second one is we are in a defense posture now. We did not start the offense, which really doesn't make sense when you are bombing civilian facilities in the capital of Tigray. And the other thing, what they are doing on their news outlets is trying to tone it down, the news of war, because they made it a point that no one should be reporting on movement of troops and on the war. So they kind of have the monopoly of information, and they are more trying to focus on other economic and social activities, uh, 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 and ignoring what's happening in around Raya Kobo. That's my final comment for today, Professor Getachew. Back to you.
Thank you, Meratab. And I want to share finally this 8-page talking points that is prepared by the government in Addis. And this is meant to be used for the media and for their cadres to frame the propaganda. So this is an 8-page talking point divided into a number of sections. So here it says the terrorist TPLF, the war opened by the terrorist TPLF, and the main points or messaging to the people. So how they want to mobilize the people and so on. So they are talking about, way back to the 2018, what they call reform, and they mention about how the reform was doing a lot of good stuff, but then because of the war, and they are talking about first round, second round, and third round war waged by the quote unquote the TPLF. So this is fresh uh, talking point. So there is section one looking at the national reform and TPLF, a number of points they mention. But the bottom line of every section is tell the people that we are or we have been doing anything to make peace, but then it's the TPLF or the terrorists who did this or did that and so on. So you could see that this new talking point, list of talking point, is already in action, given what we see from the government, federal government communication service office that issued, and they are talking about Kobo being encircled by Tigray forces. Just 6 hours ago, actually 1 hour ago, there is an update from the federal government communication service. And let me share that, and we will finish with that for today. And we'll be back with another episode of Signal Roundup tomorrow. So this is the update from just 1 hour ago. The government communication service of uh, Ethiopia saying, on one hand, the terrorist clique TPLF is attacking the city of Kobo in many directions, using its usual human wave strategy. And they also mentioned the defense forces have been forced to leave Kobo city and take a defense position on the outskirts. So the government is saying that Kobo city is abandoned. We didn't want to share that before either Addis Ababa or Makala say that, but there were already informations coming out that Kobo city is under Tigray forces. But this is the first communication from the government of Addis, the government in Addis, saying that Kobo is abandoned by the Ethiopian Defense Forces. So what we are hearing is the risk for civilians is at unprecedented level. I mean, over the past months, given that there was no active war at least, but now we have seen this increasing. I think I didn't share that on the screen, but this is the federal government, FDRE, Government Communication Service, talking about Kobo being abandoned by the defense forces. Okay, that is the show for today in terms of the Signal Roundup. We will be back tomorrow with another episode, and we will update you on what is going to happen in the next 24 hours. Meratab Zarabruk, thank you so much for your time. See you soon.
Thank you. See you, Professor.